Good evening, guys. This evening's topic C is the title is Decades Before Symptoms, the Silent Brain Changes Linked to Alzheimer's Disease. Okay, this is an op-ed presentation for you. I made myself, so please enjoy. Alzheimer's disease does not begin with forgetting. It begins with silence. For decades, often 20 years or more, the brain quietly reshaped by biological forces that leave no outward trace. People are working, caregiving, leading organizations, living full lives. They pass cognitive tests. They feel normal, yet beneath the surface, the earliest masonry of memory is already under strain. This is the truth we have not fully absorbed as a society. Alzheimer's is not a disease of old age. It is a disease of midlife that only reveals itself in old age, and our policies, our research, priorities, and our care systems have not caught up. The first changes are visible but decisive. In the late 50s or early 60s, amyloid beta begins to accumulate, not in dramatic plaques, but in microscopic clusters. Oligomers that quietly interfere with synaptic communication. These changes are detectable today through blood biomarkers like PTAU 217 years before a PET scan turns positive. By the mid-60s, TAU, the protein that stabilizes the neurons' internal scaffolding, begins to misfold. It starts in the entorhinal cortex, the brain's memory gateway, forming the earliest tangles. This is the moment the disease becomes self-propagating, but it's still silent. Then come the electrical changes. Using magnetophy, researchers can now detect subtle disruptions in memory-related neurocircuits that predict Alzheimer's progression. Two and a half years before symptoms. The brain is signaling distress long before the person can. These discoveries should shake us. They should change how we talk about Alzheimer's, how we screen for it, and how we prepare for it. We are living in the wrong timeline. Our health systems still treat Alzheimer's as a disease that begins when symptoms appear, but symptoms are the final act, not the opening scene. By the time a family notices repeated questions or misplaced conversations, the brain has already endured 15 to 20 years of amyloid buildup, 10 years plus of TAU misfolding, years of years of circuit dysfunction, structural changes detectable on MRI. We we are diagnosing Alzheimer's at the biological equivalent of stage 4. This is not just a clinical problem. It is a policy failure. The public deserves a new narrative. We need to stop telling people that Alzheimer's starts with memory loss. It doesn't. It starts with molecular drift in midlife. It starts with proteins that misfold. Silently, it starts with electrical signals that falter long before cognition does. If we reframed Alzheimer's as a decade-long disease, we would screen earlier, intervene earlier, plan earlier, support caregivers earlier, invest earlier. We would shift from crisis response to prevention. The future of Alzheimer's care is pre symptomatic. The most promising therapies, amyloid clearing drugs, TAU targeting, antibodies, neuroprotective agents will likely be most effective before symptoms begin. That means our entire care model must move upstream. Blood based biomarkers make this possible. They are inexpensive, scalable, and accessible. They can identify risks years before cognitive decline. They can help families plan. They can help clinicians intervene. They can help health systems allocate resources more wisely, but only if we choose to use them. The moral argument: Alzheimer's is not just a biomedical challenge, it is a moral one. We owe we owe people the the chance to understand what is happening in their brains before their memories begin to slip away. We owe families time to plan, time to prepare, time to make decisions while the person they love is still fully themselves. Silence has been the defining feature of Alzheimer's far too long. Silence in the brain, silence in the public discourse, silence in policy. It is time to break it. Alzheimer's disease has always carried a terrible irony, but by the time we diagnose it, the brain has already endured years, often decades of damage. Families arrive in the exam rooms seeking answers, but the biology has been unfolding silently since midlife. We have been trying to fight a fire only after the house has already burned. Now, for the first time, scientists may have found a way to hear the earliest cracking of of that fire. A team of, re- of a team of researchers using magnetrophy or MEG has identified a hidden electrical signal, a subtle pattern in the brain's beta frequency activity that predicts who will develop Alzheimer's years before symptoms appear. It is not a protein, not a plaque, not a tangle. It is a rhythm, a disruption in the brain's internal music. And it may change everything. The brain speaks before it breaks. For decades, Alzheimer's research has focused on structural and molecular markers, amyloid plaques, tau tangles, shrinking hippocampi. These are important, but they are late. They tell us what has already happened. Electrical activity tells us what is happening now. Using a new computational method called spectral event toolbox, researchers discovered that people who later developed Alzheimer's had fewer and weaker bursts of beta band activity, brief electrical events essential for memory conditioning. These changes were detectable 2.5 years before diagnosis, long before cognitive tests showed decline. This is not just early detection, it is early dysfunction. It is the brain's whispering that something is wrong long before it loses its ability to speak. The silent years we keep ignoring. We still talk about Alzheimer's as if it begins with memory loss. It doesn't. It begins with decades of silent biological drifting, amyloid accumulation starting in the late 50s. TAU misfolding beginning in the mid 60s. Circuit dysfunction emerging years before symptoms. Structural changes detectable long before diagnosis. By the time a spouse notices repeated questions, the disease has already traveled a long road. This new electrical biomarker exposes that road with unprecedented clarity. It shows us the moment the brain begins to struggle, not when it fails, but when it fights. Why the why this discovery matters now. We are entering an era when Alzheimer's treatments work best before symptoms begin. Drugs like lecanemab and domebinab target early amyloid pathology. TAU targeting therapies are in development. Blood tests like PTAU 217 can identify risks years ahead, but none of these tools capture function. None tell us how the brain is actually performing in real time. This hidden electrical signal does. It could help clinicians identify high risk individuals for early intervention. It could guide enrollment in prevention trials. It could give families time to plan, time to prepare, time to act while their loved one is still fully themselves. And it could shift Alzheimer's care from crisis response to anticipatory care, a model palliative clinicians have championed for decades. The policy implications are enormous. If we can detect Alzheimer's years before symptoms, our systems must adapt, screen earlier, especially in midlife, integrate electrical biomarkers into diagnostic pathways, expand access to MEG and advanced neuropsychology tools, invest in early stage therapeutics, educate the public that Alzheimer's is decades long. Alzheimer's is a decades long disease. We cannot continue treating Alzheimer's as a condition that begins at 75. The biology tells us different. The biology tells us a different story. The brain's electrical signals tell an even earlier one. The moral argument. Alzheimer's steals memory, identity, and connection. But long before it does, it steals time. Time we could have used to prepare, to plan, to support, to intervene. This hidden brain signal gives some of us some of that time back. It offers a chance to hear the disease before it roars, a chance to act before decline begins, a chance to rewrite the narrative from inevitability to intervention. The question is whether we will listen. If we want to expand or adapt this, you can explore electrical biomarkers, MEG in dementia, practical Alzheimer's timeline, beta band neural events. Okay, guys, that is your C. I will see if I could jump back on later and do a D if I have time. For now, Gator Wellness, take care, folks.